Hi everyone, welcome back. Today is our last and final class. This is the class that I assume most of you have been waiting for. Today we are going to talk about consequences. Okay, so our commitment for today, for the rest of the night, or for the rest of the class, I'm going to be willing to make mistakes and have the courage to learn from them. So as parents, a lot of times we try to impress upon our children the importance of understanding that all of our actions have consequences. And we usually do this in a number of ways. Like, we tell them, okay, well, if you eat 10 pounds of chocolate, you're going to end up with a stomach ache. See, that's not a punishment, but that is a consequence of them making that bad choice. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is the different types of consequences and how to use them to help our children learn. Okay, now I'm going to show you a quick video from Modern Family that I think shows logical consequences pretty well. Okay, enjoy.
Dad! What happened? Luke just shot me. I didn't mean to.
Are you okay?
No, they're only plastic BBs. It was an accident.
What did I tell you would happen if you got him a gun? Deal with this.
Buddy, uncool.
That's it? No. The agreement was that if he shoots someone, you shoot him.
We were serious about that?
Yes, we were, and now you have to follow through.
I'm so sorry.
Liar. Go.
He's got a birthday party.
What's more important here, Dad?
You can shoot him afterwards. He'll be home at 2.
I can't shoot him at 2. I'm showing a house at 2.
What about 3?
No, he's got a soccer game at 3, and then we gotta leave for that dinner thing at 5. 4:15. You could shoot him at 4:15.
Yeah, I guess that works for me.
Shoot Luke.
Sorry, dude. It's on the calendar.
Oh, come on.
Buddy, what are you wearing?
Nothing.
No jacket. 1 hat. How many pairs of underwear do you have on?
1. 6.
I want you to know, I'm not enjoying this, but this is an important lesson that you're learning, so soak it, keep it.
You're too close. It's gonna hurt.
It's supposed to hurt.
And why are you smiling?
What? Oh, forget it. I can't do this. The point is you're scared. I think you've learned your lesson. Wow.
Ow! You hit my bone.
It was an accident.
Thought you were my friend.
I am your friend.
Dad, you have got to talk to Mom. She is, completely freaking out and embarrassing me.
Well, honey, your mom isn't always as cool about things as I. What is with this thing? Ow!
Okay, so our power for today is the power of intention. And what this is it outlines that mistakes are opportunities to learn. Learning comes through experimentation and failure. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, all of our actions have consequences, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. But ultimately, any mistake we make is an opportunity to learn because we realize, all right, well, when I did it this way, this didn't work. Maybe if I try it a different way, I'll have success. Okay, so I wanted to show you an example of some consequences that I think as parents, or at least me growing up, I remember being given some of these consequences. And we can agree they're not truthful. So then they're like, if you keep making faces, it's going to stay that way. Now, that's not true. Or another one that I came across is picking your nose will make it bigger. There's nothing true about that. I also remember being told, and I think this one was more of a joke, was if you swallow watermelon seeds, a watermelon will grow in your belly. Obviously, that's not true. I actually swallowed a watermelon seed once on accident when I was a child, and then I was very scared, and ultimately nothing happened. So some other consequences, and I think these are maybe more of the things that parents say more out of fear, out of I want to keep my child safe, and I'm scared that they're getting away from me and they might get hurt. So one example might be, you're going to fall and break your neck with your shoes untied like that. Or if you run away from me in this parking lot, you'll get hit by a car and die. Or this one, I think probably most of us heard this one. If you stand too close to the TV, you're going to go blind. Now with that first one, you're going to fall and break your neck with your shoes untied like that. I'm pretty sure most of us have spent some time with our shoes untied, and we probably fell. Maybe we tripped on our own laces, something like that. But how many of us actually broke our necks when we did that? I'm pretty sure when I was a kid and I tripped on my own laces, I think I might have skinned my elbow, or I might have bruised my forearm, but I've gone my entire life without breaking my neck. So I'm beginning to suspect that that's not true. Or if you run away from me in this parking lot, you'll get hit by a car and die. So I'm an adult, and I've been driving for, I don't know, somewhere close to 10 years now. And so I've become pretty familiar with the average speed that most adults drive when in parking lots. And it's probably usually somewhere around 5 miles an hour or less. Now, if a child were to run away from their parent in a parking lot and get hit by a car, they'd probably get hurt. Maybe they'd, get knocked down and break a bone, or, I'm not saying that they would end up uninjured, but it's extremely unlikely that they would die. The car's just not going fast enough. I'm not saying parking lots are safe. They're generally not quite so unsafe. It's not as if children are accidentally wandering out into, the Indy 500 of parking lots. Or the one, if you stand too close to the TV, you're going to go blind. Now this one, I sometimes suspect that maybe parents say this more out of annoyance than out of fear, and that's fine. I mean, we've all been there. We've all said things out of annoyance to, let our kids know the consequence, get them to step away. And I mean, maybe there is some long-term damage that can happen to our eyes if, we're right there up staring with our eyes basically pressed against the TV. Sure. But as far as going blind, maybe there's been one case in the history of all the years and all the billions of people who watch TV on a regular basis. Maybe there's one case, but maybe that person was going blind anyway. And maybe it wasn't the fault of the TV. So here's the problem with telling our kids things like this, is that eventually we tell them that these things are going to happen to them, and they start to realize that they're not happening. If they run away from us in a parking lot and they don't die, they're like, hold on a second, it wasn't true. I lived. And it starts to eat away at the trust between us and our children. And they start to think a number of things. One, maybe they think, oh, well, Mom doesn't actually know what's going to happen. She doesn't actually know what's safe and unsafe or good and bad. Or it's, Mom just said that to scare me. I'm going to be fine. Now, anytime that trust disappears, or kind of starts to slip away in a relationship, it's never a good thing. But it can be especially damaging in a relationship where we want our children to take us seriously, and when we are trying to keep them safe, we want them to understand the seriousness of their actions. So if we keep telling them that they're going to break their necks with their shoes untied, eventually they're not going to think about any of their concerns of having their shoes untied. Now, if we were to say things like, you will probably trip and hurt your elbow with your shoes untied. Maybe, the first couple of times it doesn't happen, our child might think, okay, well, that's not real. But then eventually it's going to happen. Kids aren't exactly graceful. And they'll realize, oh, Mom did tell me, yeah, she was right. And they'll start to understand that all actions have consequences. And hey, maybe our parents are people who are pretty good at knowing the consequences of certain actions. Maybe I should listen to them. Okay, so there are 3 types of consequences that just exist in our world. The first kind is natural consequences. Now, these are the kind of consequences that just happen as a result of our actions. Um, so, like, for example, if your child has an ice cream cone and they choose to, kind of dangle that ice cream cone above their head and, whatever, maybe they're pretending to be an ice cream unicorn. I don't know. Children make up wild and fun things all the time. But maybe they're doing that, and then most likely that ice cream's going to slip right out of their hand and land right on their head, just like that poor guy in that photo. And that's a natural consequence. That's just something that happened as a result of their action. Or the other one, I'm sure we've all lived this as parents, and maybe we have some traumatic memories of our own from childhood. But it's we give our child a balloon, and our child does not want the balloon tied around their wrist or around their belt loop or anything. They just want to hold their balloon tightly in their fist. And inevitably, what seems to happen, especially for our cute kids, ages 5 and under, is they always open their fist and they always let go of that balloon and it floats away. Now, that's just a natural consequence. If you don't tie the balloon around your wrist, you don't try and secure it in any way, and then you open your fist, that helium balloon, of course, is going to float away. And that's just a consequence of that child's choice. Okay, so the second type of consequence, now, that first consequence was just, it's basically like laws of nature consequence. These other two are consequences that we as adults can enact on our children. And I suppose we can also apply them to ourselves, and we can apply them within our relationships and things like that. But logical consequences are consequences that happen as a result of a child's actions. So, for example, if a child colors on the wall, then the child is expected to clean the wall. A child makes a mess on the floor, the child is expected to sweep up the mess. It's just, you do A, okay, well, then you have to clean up A, or you have to make up for A. And the consequence is directly related to the action. This is probably the simplest, and the simpler of the two to make happen for our children. Natural consequences are the most powerful teaching tool for our kids. But the thing is since they're natural consequences, we really can't make them happen. I mean, we can pry open our child's fist and make the balloon float away. But then it's not as much a natural consequence because we're acting upon it. And really, then our child would just think that we're mean, and they wouldn't think that they have any responsibility, because really, it would be our fault, not theirs. So logical consequence is easiest because, really, the child colors on something, breaks something, the most logical thing then would be to expect the child to take care of it. Now, a lot of times little kids will especially need guidance on how to clean up the wall. Most 3-4-year-olds don't really know what the best cleaning product is to use to get crayon off of, white paint. So they'll need guidance, and that's fine. Giving guidance isn't difficult. And, they might need reminders throughout their cleaning because they get bored and their hands get tired easily and things like that. But it's powerful because the child, they might be like, oh, I don't want to know why. But ultimately, they're going to understand, oh, well, I colored on the wall, I'm cleaning the wall. Okay, it makes perfect sense. It's completely and directly related. Now, the third type of consequence is problem solving as a consequence. Now, I would recommend using this one when the mistake that your child has made is a little bit more difficult to fix, or if you feel like your child maybe needs a little bit more talking to and understanding why what they did wasn't a good thing. And a lot of times, with little kids, especially when it comes to things like coloring on the wall, they wouldn't necessarily need to talking to. They just need more reminders of what's appropriate to color on. And if you think about it, it is kind of a big skill to realize, okay, well, paper is white, but the wall is white. Why isn't the wall just more paper? It's confusing. The more you think about it, it's confusing. And so for something like that, our kids need constant reminders like, okay, here, you can color on this. Keep your markers on this, and you just keep showing them what to color on. Okay, this and this and this. If they're a little bit older, like maybe like 5, they'll start to be able to grasp better when you say things like, okay, you can color on this, point at the paper, but not this, and point at the wall. Kids 3, some 4-year-olds can kind of get that, but that is a little bit more complex thought with a this, but not this. I know it doesn't seem complex, but it is complex in their brains. So I would just recommend mostly just direct them, color on this, color on this, color on this. And you can even give them a couple of options, white paper, yellow paper, whatever. And definitely, like with coloring, make sure that you're supervising it for a little while, especially after wall coloring incidents or couch coloring incidents, because really, children aren't trying to destroy things, but they do because they still don't know what's appropriate to color on and what is inappropriate to color on. Okay, so with problem solving as a consequence, this would be a good one. So say, for example, your child hits another child and they made the other child feel sad. Now, there's not necessarily a good logical consequence for that. I mean, I suppose the logical consequence could be your child hit, therefore the other child could now hit your child. I mean, yes, that's logical, but really, I mean, it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't make anything better, where when a child colors on a wall and then cleans the wall is not dirty anymore and something is fixed. But when a child gets hit, I mean, maybe as a logical consequence, it could be that your child then has to bring that child a Band-Aid or an ice pack or something. But that's not always necessarily even the best solution. Can be helpful, definitely. But this, for hitting and kicking and other things, or calling mean names, that's when problem solving as a consequence becomes more powerful. Now with this one, this would be sitting your child down, discussing the incident that just happened. So saying, okay, and let's say child A, the hitter, his name is, let's say his name is James. And then child B, the child that was hit, let's say his name is Alex. So we'd say, okay, James, you felt angry or you wanted the toy or whatever it was. Let's say you wanted the toy that Alex was playing with, so you decided to hit him. Now Alex is hurt and he's crying. What can we do to make things better? Or what can we do to solve this problem? Now, a lot of times, especially with young kids, I mean, especially our kids under 5, they're like, I don't know, I want the toy, and they're going to have a hard time kind of shifting to think about other people. And it's mostly because that's just where their brain development is at. And there's nothing wrong with them. They're just little and inexperienced. And so with this problem solving as a consequence, most likely you're going to be talking them through most of the problem solving. And that's fine because really, I mean, as human beings, we learn all of our vocabulary by hearing it from other people. And so it makes perfect sense that our kids will learn their problem solving skills by hearing it from us. And eventually they'll be able to put it into practice. But most kids are auditory learners for a lot of their child lives, because that's just something that they start with. So you'll tell them, okay, so he's hurt and he's crying. What can we do to help him feel better? And you'll just brainstorm some ideas. So you'll start slow giving some suggestions. You could say, okay, we could give him a hug. We could ask him if he wants a Band-Aid and then bring him a Band-Aid. And I mean, we all know kids. Kids, for whatever reason it is, they all love Band-Aids. It doesn't matter if they're bleeding or not. I'm not really sure what it is, but every kid I have ever known in my entire life has always loved Band-Aid. I've never seen a child reject a Band-Aid. I mean, even I've seen children ask for and accept Band-Aids when someone called them a mean name. I mean, at least a bruise I can kind of understand, or a bump, But who knows? I guess that one that day was just an emotional day. And you know what? That's fine. That worked for that child. So there you go. Good. But anyway, so we'll keep problem solving with our child. We'll ask about offering a band-aid. We could say, okay, or we could tell him sorry. We could give him the toy back, and we just go on and on. And eventually, as the more that we encourage our child to work on their problem solving with us, they'll probably do one of two things. So they'll either chime in with their own idea. Usually that probably won't happen until you've done this a couple of times, because they'll kind of get used to it and they'll kind of figure out, okay, this is how I do this. But if they don't do it the first time, it's because they're still trying to figure out what the heck this skill is. They just don't know. That's fine. They're learning. And so what then can happen after your problem solving, and if your child doesn't pick anything, he just says, I don't know, then you can just give him a choice of two. You can say, okay, well, would you rather give him a Band-Aid, or would you rather tell him that you're sorry, which is better for you? And then you can repeat that a couple of times until your child makes the choice, and then go from there. And what's powerful about problem solving as a consequence is that it empowers our children to solve their own problems. And it empowers them that when they've done something to hurt someone else, that they start figuring out what helps people feel better. And the thing is I do this a lot with my daughter, and I usually like to give her an option between, okay, you can choose to say sorry, or you can ask someone if they're okay, or you can give them a hug. And usually I won't make her say sorry. I mean, if she chooses that, that's great. But I always give her the choice. And a lot of times what ends up happening is, she might pick to ask someone if they're okay rather than picking to give them a hug. But then she'll usually walk over to that person, ask them if they're okay, then give them a hug, and then say that she's sorry. And so it's great because I empowered her by giving her a choice, but then she decided to go further, and it became a sincere apology. And I love it. And a lot of that stems from offering problem solving as a consequence. I mean, and really when I say consequence, I mean, ultimately, when our kids do something wrong, I mean, we want them to understand that it's wrong. And this is probably the most effective form of punishment that you can give them. Because when we put our kids, in timeout for hitting someone else, our kids don't draw the connection between hurting someone and sitting in the corner for, 3 minutes. They might come to realize that there's a connection, and that if they do that, then they'll have to sit alone. But and that will teach them to try not to do it, but it won't teach them why. Like, it won't teach them why hitting is unimportant, and it won't teach them a better way to help someone feel better or make up for their actions after they've done that. And then a lot of times what happens is these same kids who were put in timeout, when they grow up and they do something wrong, instead of being able to find ways to fix whatever they've done, they might just have to be alone for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours, or, and let me tell you, as an adult, that is not a great skill. And that is why it is so essential for us as parents to give our kids as many skills as we possibly can. Okay, now I want to dive in a little bit deeper into logical consequences. Now, Conscious Blend has listed the 3 R's and big E of logical consequences, and that is related, which is basically the consequence is related to the child's behavior. Respectful, this is the consequence is respectful in terms of the consequence itself. Reasonable is the consequence is reasonable, meaning it is something the child can actually do. And empathy is, it's just a reminder to follow through on the consequence with empathy. A lot of times when our children are doing things wrong that, require that we accompany it with consequence, it's important that we don't see them as, bad or naughty children. We see them as kids who made a mistake. And we treat them as people who made a mistake and need our support to improve their skills and to recover from that mistake. Okay, so let's talk about related to start. Okay, so you'll notice over these next couple of slides that one of the photos is outlined in red. So the one that I outlined in red is the one that's wrong, basically. So if a child colors on a wall, what's related? Have the child clean up the wall. What's not related is to put the child in timeout in the corner. Because then the child they're going to grow up and they're going to think that when they do something wrong, timeout. And they're not really going to understand why coloring on the wall or that coloring on the wall was bad. Because a lot of times, kids are pretty oblivious to the world around them, which seems surprising considering how much, you go on a walk with them and they'll notice like the tiniest little bug on a leaf. And so I think sometimes we think that because kids are really good at picking out those tiny details that no adult would ever notice, that they're actually really hyper aware of the world around them. But they're not. They're just really aware of that tiny bug on that tiny leaf, and they're not really aware how their actions are related to their parents being mad, or how their actions are related to another child being hurt or sad. So when our children color on a wall, the most logical thing is the related thing. Have them clean the wall. They dump a bunch of cereal on the floor. The most related thing, have them clean up the cereal off the floor. To be honest, I've personally never really understood timeout. But I guess it's because what is the opposite of timeout? What is the thing that a child would need to do where their punishment would be spending a couple of minutes alone? And even as I was preparing this class, I honestly wasn't able to think of anything. So it's important that when we're giving our children logical consequences, that they make sense. Okay, so let's talk about respectful. So outlined in red is an example of parent shaming. Or actually, well, I guess technically it's child shaming. So I've seen a little bit of this over the past year. I think it was kind of a trend for a little bit. And basically, if you've seen this, the premise is that, a child, and I've also seen this with pets, but that a child does something wrong and then a parent writes on like paper, and a lot of times they have the child folded paper. This one was a little bit different. Outlining what they did. So this one says, I broke into the pantry and emptied 2 boxes of cereal onto the floor today at different times. Now, it's important that when we are giving our children consequences, that they're respectful of children as a person. I understand that at least some of the parent or the child shaming photos that I looked at, a lot of the kids look too young to read and too young to, fully comprehend what they probably didn't know what the paper said. Maybe they did. I don't know. But to comprehend the link between that paper and what they'd done and why it was wrong. But eventually, those kids might grow up and they might see that. And any kind of shaming it's not respectful to anyone or any animal even, at any age and at any point in time. And I can absolutely understand that it would be so frustrating to have a child break into a pantry and empty an entire box of cereal onto the floor, and twice in one day at different times. I would be so frustrated if my child did that. And then I was like, oh no, I gotta clean up this mess again. I absolutely understand. But I just want to say right now that sharing what our child did, on a paper like that and posting it on the internet or sharing it, however, it's not fair to our children, and it's not respectful of them as people. And ultimately, it's not going to be very effective. The most effective consequence and the most respectful one is still the logical one. For a child that opens and empties 2 boxes of cereal on the floor, have them clean it up. And I mean, work with them, because, like that little photo of the baby, I mean, if if a child that size made a mess like that, yeah, absolutely, give them that little hand brush. We know they're not really going to be able to clean it up, but at least they'll understand this is something that happens after. And really, I'm like, most kids, especially if you're like holding them to it and you make them spend the time cleaning up, they're not going to enjoy it, and they're not going to like the activity, and they'll probably complain. And all of those things are good, because it will make it sink into their mind that, oh, when I do this, then I have to sweep up the cereal. I don't like that. And they're going to be significantly less motivated to do it again. Okay, so the next one is reasonable. Now, reasonable, as I said earlier, it means that this is something that the child can actually do. So let's say, for example, the boy in the gray earlier took a toy. Let's say he broke a toy that belonged to the girl in the pink pants. So it would be completely unreasonable for us to then expect that child to go and get a job and to make money to be able to pay for a toy to pay back that toy. I mean, 1, child labor laws. 2, who's gonna give good references to a kid that breaks toys? Probably not his parents. So good luck getting a job without good references, kid. So the most reasonable thing would be, okay, my child broke a toy that belonged to another child. Then his consequence is having to replace that toy with one of his own, with giving that toy. Because really, I'm like, if he broke it, most likely it can't be, let's say it can't be fixed, and even if it could, probably our kids wouldn't be able to fix it. But our children could be explained the importance of giving a toy because they destroyed someone else's, and then being expected to make up for it with one of their own. That definitely is reasonable. Okay, and then the last one, empathy. Now, this one I think is really important, and I know that we had an entire class on empathy 2 weeks ago. But this is really, really essential, I think, to the consequences process. And the reason that I find this so essential is that when we deliver, these consequences to our kids, it's important that we are treating them as people who have made mistakes, and we're not treating them as people who are bad, or who are evil, or who tried to ruin things for other people. Or as the one I outlined in red, that one is, we told our kids if they tried to carry 3 cups of juice at the same time, that they would drop them and they would spill out of their hands, and they would be upset. Now, when that inevitably happens, because, let's be real, no 4-year-old can handle 3 cups of something. I could hardly handle that as an adult. So why would a 3-year-old be able to? Sometimes I think our instinct is to want to be like, see, I told you this would happen, or I told you so, or jump into a lecture. Now, lectures are not empathetic at all. I'm just going to throw that out there. And the entire purpose of empathy is to drive connection. And it's to give you and your child an opportunity to connect, and to help your child understand why hitting hurts other people, or why coloring on the wall is something that you as a parent don't like. Why it's more important to color on paper. Or why it's important to, when we've hurt someone else, why it's important to help make things better. And really, if we're just standing there and we're lecturing our kids on this, and we're just kind of going over and over, we're going to lose them. And we're going to lose that connection. And really, they're just gonna fade out and they're not gonna want to be there anymore. But if we're trying to understand, say, what led our child to hitting another child, then we can say, oh, wow, okay, well, you felt angry. He took that toy from you. And we can validate that our child felt angry and that was a motivator. And then from there, we still hold them to the consequence, because even though our child felt angry, it's still not okay to hit. But we are there as parents to help them do better. And we are there as parents to help listen to them and help them understand that it's okay to have strong emotions. But, let's say don't do that in a firm voice instead of hitting. Okay, now I have a chart here, and this is going to be, we're going to do an activity with this. Now, all children tattletale. They all tell on each other, but there are 3 reasons, basically, and there's 3 types of tattling that children do. The first type is intrusion. This is basically where a child has been victimized. So this will, be like, oh, she pushed me. And basically, the skill that they're lacking here is assertiveness. And so a lot of times when kids come to parents, teachers, some kind of trusted adult, what they're hoping for is that when they tell the adult will help them feel powerful, or help them feel empowered, or help them feel safe again. And it's, I basically what they're saying is, I don't know how to deal with this. Help me. So the recommendation typically for this one, and this one's probably my favorite because it's pretty different. It's to start with when, our kid comes to us, oh, she pushed me, and, they're probably upset. Is to ask them, well, did you like it? And let me tell you, I've never had a kid say yes, ever. And I've probably asked hundreds of kids this, post incident. And it's like, no. But the reason that asking them this question is helpful is because it will help us see what kind of emotional state they're in. Because then it helps us figure out, whether they're ready for us to give them the assertive phrase or not to say to the other child. And they're going to respond probably one of 2 ways to did you like it? It'll be no teary or no angry. Now, if it's no angry, you're probably going to want to give the child a little bit of time to kind of work through their emotions, and they're probably not ready then to go back to their child and confront them basically about what happened and tell them that they didn't like that and don't do that. But if they're teary, they're probably a little bit closer to that, because when they're teary, they're in the emotional state, and the emotional state's a lot closer to our executive state where we're ready to problem solve. So with that one, you okay, did you like it? No. Okay, then what I want you to do is I want you to go over to female child, and I want you to tell her, I don't like when you push me. Don't do that. A lot of times, okay. And then they go and do that. And then we practice this with them over and over and over again. Each time they come tattling with this, that's the option that we give them. Those are the words that we empower them to use. The reason that we do this is because then our children know what to do when they're in the middle of a conflict, and they know what to say, and they know how to stand up for themselves. And eventually they won't feel like they always have to turn to a trusted adult to solve the problem for them. Now, it's wonderful that children have trusted adults that they think can help solve the problem. Absolutely, that's a great thing. But we don't want children to grow into adults who think that they can't solve any problem, without the help from someone else. Now, it's great to ask for help, but it's not always great to ask for help with every single thing in our lives. There are some things that we can probably handle on our own, like, should I reschedule an appointment? Yes or no? I think it's better if most adults can figure out little things themselves. Okay, so our second type of tattling is revenge tattling. Maybe it's just me, but I think this one's just super common. And it's basically, child wants to get someone in trouble, or they want to uphold the rules. This is especially true at about age 5 and 6. So what happens is around ages 5, 6, sometimes 7, kids start to become really, really interested in rules and fairness. Um, and this usually continues until they're maybe like 10. It depends on the kid, but they become really interested in it. And so when they actually see someone else break the rules, it genuinely bothers them. It's not just to get another child in trouble. It's the rules matter to them, fairness matters to them. They can't stand the injustice, so they will tattle. So the skill needed here is helpfulness. When our children are tattling this way, they're not figuring out how to be helpful. And the lovely thing about helpful is when children feel that they're helpful, it's like the best self-esteem boost possible. And it's the absolute best way for them to get attention. And so sometimes they'll go the revenge route because they want to get someone to trouble because, I don't know, maybe they felt rejected. Or maybe they really just are stressed out about the rules. That is genuine for a lot of kids. So the message here is, I don't know how to express myself directly. It's, well, I was rejected. Now I want someone else to hurt. That's pretty common. And so really, then like we can ask, or really like what our children asking is, are you telling me to be helpful or hurtful? And this is a really important question to ask the kids, because sometimes kids might say hurtful. They might. Doesn't make them bad people. Just want to say. Most likely they want to be hurtful because they hurt, and hurt people hurt people. Now, if our children respond with hurtful, say, then that's opens us up to a bigger discussion. But hopefully they'll respond with helpful, and then, me as, say, the adult in charge, I can go and I can talk with this child about, like remind them how to follow the rules. And I can also remind the child, okay, well, when Donnie stood on his chair in class, I think Donnie forgot how to stay safe. And then I would go and I would remind him, okay, keep your feet on the floor to keep it safe. Okay, and then the last type of tattling is tattling that relates to safety. And I think this is the tattling that we tend to see as like the most noble. And it's basically that child sees someone getting seriously hurt. And the skill, they are trusting in us as authority figures, and they're worried about the other child, and they're not feeling safe, and they don't know what to do. Like, for example, it could be, Kevin fell off the swing, and now he's bleeding. And so they're scared, and they want us adults to take care of it. And you know what? If a child falls off a swing and is bleeding, usually little kids aren't equipped to deal with it. So we can just respond to them with, you know what? I'll take care of it. That's the best thing for them. And, then we usually thank that child for helping us. And now I know that especially those first two types of tattling can be annoying. And we probably wish we didn't hear so many examples of them so often. But no type of tattling is really bad, because all types of tattling are demonstrating to us that our child needs help with some skill. And like we talked about earlier, one of our primary jobs as adults is to give our kids as many skills as possible. So what I would like for you to do is I want you to pause this video for 10 minutes, and I want you to practice the skill of what to do with this tattling. Now, I'm going to just read you off a couple of examples, and I want you to fit it in with, whether it's intrusion, revenge, or safety. And then I want you to think about what you would say to these children. And then go ahead, if you finish that, in less than 10 minutes, go ahead and inject some examples from your personal life, especially if you have multiple kids. I know you've heard a lot of tattling. Okay, so the first one, Anna is not lining up. So first identify, is that for intrusion, revenge, or safety? And then decide how you would respond. Okay, our second one is Sam wrote on my paper. Okay, once again, intrusion, revenge, or safety. Decide how you respond. Our next one is Avery pushed me. Okay, Intrusion, revenge, or safety? Go. And then our last one is, Maya pushed Eric off the swing. He's bleeding. Okay. Intrusion, revenge, safety. What do you think? All right. Go ahead and pause this video and start your activity. All right. Go. Okay. Now, I hope that you enjoyed that activity, and I hope that it helped you see the connection between tattling and consequences. I mean, also what's I think is especially powerful with that one is, really the consequence of that tattling was then that you helped the child help them figure out what to do, and you helped give them skills that they were missing. Now, I just wanted to end with this quote that I absolutely love, and it's, every conflict presents you with a choice. You can choose to view conflict as an opportunity to teach or as an opportunity to blame and punish. I implore you to always, as much as you possibly can, treat conflict as an opportunity to teach, but ultimately it's up to you. But I can promise you that the more often that you use conflict as an opportunity to teach, the less conflict that you will have in your home, and the more skills that your children will have, and ultimately the easier your job will be as a parent. So I want to say thank you for watching all these videos and sticking with me for all these weeks. It's been really great for me. So best of luck as you are applying these skills with your children. This is Megan Joaquin signing off.